Good evening. Welcome to the Free Thought Forum, your Pennsylvania Nonbelievers presentation. And this is a group that is here in New York for all you atheists, agnostics, humanists, free thinkers. Anyone who would like to join us, I think we're going to put our phone number up there in the bottom in just a second. And let's go to our disclaimer as we normally do, that anything you hear on this show is the opinions of the speakers. If someone calls in, it's their opinion. Don't blame WRCT for anything we say that sounds ridiculous. So, here we are in December, and of course this is a big season for Christians because of Christmas coming up. And for atheists, it's for many of us, we don't care for Christmas at all. We don't like it much at all. And there are many Christians who do, though. Many Christians who and atheists who enjoy the celebrations all around. But one of the phony, drummed up things we get every year, it seems, is the war on Christmas. And Jason, have you declared war on Christmas?
No.
No, you haven't. Well, I don't know who's John
Yeah.
Stewart declared war on Christmas.
Yeah, he
But-
did that a little bit.
But that is a comedy show, so we gotta.
Well, the whole thing is comedy, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah, the war on Christmas is one of those trumped up things that some people are using to get people riled up, you know?
Yeah, it's the Christian persecution complex with,
Yeah.
they somehow, in every poll, shows about 80% of Americans self-identify as Christians, yet they're a persecuted minority.
Yeah.
Really.
Oh, yeah.
80% of you identify as that. How is 80% a minority?
In their eyes, it is. Well, they've got these people who want to make them think this. And this war on Christmas is just part of it. Also, the churches get tax-free land. They have the faith-based initiative money. If that's picking on people, if that's a minority that's being persecuted,
Yeah.
they could
Where do I
persecute
sign
us.
up?
Yeah,
Yeah, where do I
let's,
sign
let's,
up for
let's
that?
go get persecuted. Boy, but the war on Christmas is such a phony issue. It's like so many of these other issues that they like when the healthcare bill go through the death tax and the gay marriage thing. It's done to trump up issues, get people excited, get them worked up, and get them involved in supporting right-wing politics. Many of these issues are used for fundraising purposes.
Yeah.
For many years, there was a fundraising thing going around about Madalyn Murray O'Hair when she was alive. Many, many years ago, a couple of guys who belonged to a minority religion wanted to make sure that their TV shows would get on the air like the other mainstream religions. And they filed a petition with the FCC, and somehow this was morphed into Madalyn Murray O'Hair was trying to take off all Christian programming. Madalyn Murray O'Hair had nothing to do with that petition, and the petition was shot down very quickly. But this thing rolled around for years. People fundraising off this, send us money so we can stop Madalyn Murray O'Hair from taking all Christian programming off TV. Just a trumped up thing. Once again, they made a lot of money off that.
Oh, yeah.
And the war on Christmas, I don't know how much money they're making off of that if people are sending them money to help fight the war on Christmas, but it gets people riled up and gets them going.
Oh, yeah.
It's just.
But there is no. It's just we live in a pluralistic society,
Yeah.
and not everybody is, as into something as anybody. Like anything. There's going to be some Beatles fans that are really, really, really into the Beatles, and then there's going to be some that like the Beatles, but they're not going to, pay $400 for the box set. That they're just not going to do that. But it's not like. If the hardcore Beatles fans started saying, well, there's a war on the Beatles because not every single store on the planet is shelling, trying to sell the box set, and that's what this whole Fox News thing is with the whole, and the far right claim about the war on Christmas. It's not stores just want to make money, and not everybody's Christian, and not all Christians are into being really
commercial
or being just constantly harping on about their religion. It's not like every Christian is super hardcore about it. They just are put off by that. Some people are put off by it. I would say 80% of that 80% of people are not hardcore in your face want to talk about Jesus constantly, nonstop, all day. Most people just want to live their life and do their thing, and maybe they go to church on the weekend, maybe they don't. But they don't necessarily feel that it has to be constantly forced into everybody's face all the time. So stores don't do that. You know, that's not so much a war on Christmas. It's just
reality.
It's just people saying, let's calm down a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, that's for Sunday. You know, I have to do that. I have to wake up early for 3 hours and deal with that on one day of the week. Do I have to do that every other day of the week? They just want a vacation from that mental beratement about Jesus.
And happy holidays, that offends some people, but that covers everyone.
Yeah, I don't understand that so much.
Most people have a holiday this time of year. We have the solstice. Christians have Christmas. There's Kwanzaa. There's Hanukkah.
Hanukkah.
You know, so it kind of covers everything. And why wouldn't you use a phrase that would cover everything?
Yeah.
Rather than saying Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Solstice, you know.
Yeah.
Kind of
especially when it's not like Jesus actually was born on the 25th of December. Like that's not actually true, and no one in the churches even claim that that's even true. So what is the big deal? It's the war on Christmas could only have come after a war on all the other solstice celebrations that had existed before Christmas.
Right.
You know, like almost all of our traditions associated with Christmas at this time of year are based on pre-Christian
pagan
holidays in Europe at that time. The boughs of holly, you know, everything that we have, the big feast. You know, it's the middle of the winter. You know, it's a hard time coming. So the whole town gets together and has a big feast, and everybody gets, you know, fattened up for the winter. You know? Has a nice little party.
Yeah,
but you know, and then different rulers would go and convert to Christianity and come back and say, look, we got to be Christian. It's kind of hard to get a whole nation to just switch over. I've tried. It's very hard to do that. No.
It hasn't worked, has it?
Yeah. So you just take the existing holidays and rename them. It's the same store, just new management. But that's not so much a war on Christmas or a war on solstice even so much. You know, it's just. But I think the interesting thing, and like I like this time of year. I don't mind. The only thing I don't like about it is just that, you know, the extreme right demanding that whatever, that I'm not paying enough attention to their whatever.
Yeah, their holiday.
That's really all it is that they're not being handed a cultural superiority platform. That's what they're upset about. But I like Christmas. And what I think is so neat about it is, like, from a secular point of view, or even just a human point of view, period, you can look at this time of year for millions, for thousands of years. Humans have always had a celebration at this time of year. Like, before Christians, before whatever was before that, you know, like probably forever until we could congregate into groups and stuff, we had a celebration at this time of year, which is bigger than any religion, you know, because it existed before that. So I think that's really cool, no matter what we call it.
No, I'm one person. I generally don't like Christmas, all the hubbub, and the fact that these radio stations play nothing but Christmas music, so obnoxious. But I got to put up with that. You know, the only one station I can get at work, fortunately, doesn't play all Christmas music now. They just intersperse it in. So that's okay. Now, the one thing I do like about this time of year, we go up to Manhattan.
Oh, yeah.
Manhattan is great in December.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever been there, but the hustle and the bustle, all the people, Times Square, we love all that. Of course, our daughter lives in Brooklyn, so we go visit her, and then we stay in Manhattan and get to run around Manhattan and see the tree and the skating rink and that Rockefeller Center. And that
it's just that sense of everybody,
Yeah.
You know, it's a communal thing, and, you know, again, that did not require some woman to get knocked up and say she was a virgin. You know, it's not predicated on that or necessitated by that.
Well, my theory on that was that, you know, Joseph and Mary, and Mary's pregnant. They're not married, right? Mary's pregnant. Joseph probably knew what Mary's father was going to do to him if he caught him, right? So he said, "Oh, it's Holy Ghost. Somebody did it. I didn't do that." You know, stuff.
Yeah.
That's a good way to get out of
the
it,
Holy
right?
Ghost, huh?
Yeah, so the Holy
But
Ghost did it. You know?
If a guy tried that with his
man,
what? No.
Not gonna. Wouldn't work. Wouldn't work
She'd
with
say,
me.
"Where's that Holy Ghost at?" She'd find that Holy Ghost.
Yeah, that's right. That's but some people buy that story, so we'll go with that.
I don't even know that many people do. Like, I don't think. I would think the majority of Christians, if you polled them, I think most people would say, well, it doesn't. That's maybe not true, but it's a nice story. You know, like obviously that's a little.
Yeah. Now, my understanding that especially on Catholics, that the Bible, they don't really believe it's literally true. So they don't believe everything literally true in there, and they think of more of allegories, I guess. And maybe one of my producers can shake her head and say, there's just nice stories that to help people out, but they don't believe that to be. But some religions do believe that stuff is literally true.
Yeah.
Everything in there. Now, how can you believe that a man lived inside a fish? I mean, you can't live inside a fish,
No.
A fish can't live inside you. So that's impossible. I mean, what? But they want to believe that stuff to be literally true.
Well, it depends how committed I think you are to the whole thing as a whole.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it would have to be absolute. Every word would have to be true in order for any of it, for you to take any of it so far, take it that seriously.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and you hear a lot of atheist authors and speakers talk about that. Like, the fundamentalists are the ones that are technically right because they're believing it actually is true.
Yeah.
It's the people who say, well, that's just an allegory, or that it's just a myth. It's not important that actually happened. Those are the people that aren't technically, doing it right. But they're the most sensible.
Yeah.
Because it is just crazy. Who actually believes it was all because of a talking snake in a tree?
Yeah.
Like, that's ridiculous. Like,
Yeah.
you'd have to be an idiot or crazy to think that actually a talking snake in a tree.
Yeah.
That's just stupid. And most people are not that stupid. Most people are at least smart enough to get a job and pay their bills and their cable bill to watch shows like this.
Yes, which is very important.
Yeah. Have a phone to call in.
Yeah, you wonder why these things, these talking snakes and other things, they don't happen now.
Yeah.
I'll tell you another thing that is in the Bible that.
Because that would be on YouTube right away.
Yes, yeah. Another thing, you hear that God used to smite people. I think we got a lot of people that deserve smiting. God should be smiting people all over the place. I mean, some of the awful people, they deserved a good smiting.
But see, a Christian would say, well, how would you know who deserves smiting?
Well, I would think somebody like Hitler deserved it, didn't he? I mean, my goodness, there's a guy who deserved. God was smiting people.
Well, see, it depends on how you interpret the Bible and all, and Jesus and everything. Like, Jesus would have to love Hitler anyway, which ends up, you get to all these humanist ideas anyway out of all of it.
Yeah.
So why bother? But yeah, I mean, you would say, even Hitler's a person. Even Hitler had to love somebody. He had to be good sometimes. But yeah, what he did was horrible.
Yeah. So, and just there's some other people down through history that they deserved a good smiting.
But
God
that's how they
them.
get around it. They say, what you think deserves this or that.
Yeah.
It's not up to you to judge, and God would figure that out.
God works in mysterious ways, doesn't he? Yeah.
You can't possibly fathom that.
Yeah.
So
I mean, look at that woman down in Houston. I think it was Andrea Yates, who drowned her 5 children and said God told her to do it.
Yeah.
Well, now God works in mysterious ways. How do we know He didn't?
Yeah.
Maybe
Sorry.
Maybe we're crazy.
Yeah.
Maybe we're all crazy. She's got the right idea.
Well, that's how it would have to be, and that's what drives non-believers crazy. Look, she has just as much chance of being right and everybody else being completely bonkers as anybody else. Like, as far as when it comes to religious ideas.
Yeah.
She is just as much right as Tom Cruise is, or as Jerry Falwell is, or Pat Robertson. Like, they're all equally as valid ideas.
And they all think they're right.
Yeah.
And the other guy's wrong. Everybody else is wrong.
Yeah.
That's I don't understand how God doesn't straighten that out.
Yeah.
Well, He did the thing with the Moses and the tablets and all that. Why didn't He do that again?
Yeah.
Send somebody down with some tablets there and say, here's the real story. I don't want you, you other people got it all wrong. I think that would happen sometime.
What bothers me about all that is, no matter how varied believers are on their ideas about all those things, like this lady can believe that crazy thing, or Tom Cruise can believe stuff about
Scientology stuff,
Xenu and the aliens and all that,
yeah.
or a Catholic can believe that a cracker is literally, the flesh of a dead guy from 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
Like as different as all these ideas are, they all feel like, well, they're all in the community of faith, and they're all actually on the same side when it comes to us. Like, we're the ones. You would think all of them would count us on their side against the rest of them, but that's not how it is. It's the other way around. They all, even though they all have mutually exclusive ideas, that completely exclusive. Like, if one of them's right, everybody else is wrong. It has to be that way. Mm-hmm. Whereas basically non-believers are in the position of, well, any of you might be right, depending on your claims, unless they're like logically impossible, but some of your ideas could possibly be right. We just don't have, no one's ever proven it yet. Yeah. No one's substantiated any of that. So at least we're almost, a little more open to any given one of them. Yet we're the ones that they all team up against.
Yeah,
that doesn't make any sense.
Well, we're the outside, we're the minority, and easy to pick on us.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of people, really religious people, don't like scientists. They say, well, science, they change them. It changes. Well, yeah, it changes. As evidence comes up, it changes.
Yeah, you have to.
I mean, I think it's true of most of us. Our opinions change also. If we believe one thing and then somebody proves otherwise, we change our mind.
It's all conditional, whereas their claims are absolute.
Yes. Theirs are
absolute. It's not like they're saying, well, until we find out otherwise, Jesus died and rose on the third day. Like, that is not what they're saying. They're saying this is how it happened.
Right.
Because that's how the God works. It's a divine revelation. He wasn't kidding when he said that, or whatever. But with science and empiricism and naturalism and all that, it's as far as we best understand, this is how it is. And as long as we're not completely wrong about X, Y, and Z, then this is how it is. But if we find out that we're wrong about X, Y, or Z, then we're going to have to change everything.
All knew that,
that's just how it is.
Because that's what science is. It's you don't go in with a preconceived notion and say, this is what we're going to prove.
Yeah.
No, you do an experiment, you see where it leads you. A lot of people don't seem to understand that. Those scientists aren't so smart, Well, yeah, they are pretty smart, actually. People
well, and everybody does that all the time anyway. Everybody uses... What I don't get about that is everybody uses scientific method constantly all the time. Especially, the more important the matter at hand is, the more they adhere to reason and logic and the scientific method. Like, when it comes to how much money is in their bank account, faith don't have nothing to do. They don't, you don't go to the bank and say, I have faith that there's $1 million in my bank account. The teller's going to look at you and say, well, there isn't. Goodbye. Simple as that. You can't call Comcast and say, well, I have faith that I already paid you. They're going to say, well, you didn't. Goodbye. It's as simple as that. Yeah, when it comes to your children's health or something, very, very few people are going to rely on faith, to fix a broken leg or appendicitis or something like that. Like, where the more important something is, the less faith has to do with it. You go to a doctor when the crap hits the fan. You go to a mechanic. You go to a doctor. You go to these people that are experts and have studied and understand the physical limits of the system that has to do with it.
Now, there are some religions that don't, and they were, some of them have been tried for not having their children treated, and they should be. I mean, a child, if an adult wants to make a decision that I'm not going to ever go to the doctor because God will take care of me, that's your right to do that. But a child, they don't have a choice. The parents refuse to give them medical services, and some of them die. And they say, well, they didn't pray, somebody didn't believe or something, some kind of nonsense like this. I mean, that's a terrible thing to do to a child. Let them make that choice when they're an adult,
Yeah.
But there's some crazy ideas out there,
That reminds me of this comedian I like. He had this joke that he didn't have any kids. He said if he has a kid, he's going to raise his kid Amish.
Amish?
Yeah,
All right.
because well, like in that these people are raising their children, and the kid gets no choice, like which is kind of that's the whole point here is that they're doing these things just because the parent has decided to be that stupid
Yeah.
doesn't mean that the children should suffer
Right.
as far as their health or anything like
Yeah.
that. That's where we kind of our notions about justice and what's fair kind of that's why we get worked up about that when we see that on the news.
Yeah.
But but it's not like you're born Christian or you're born
Right.
Christian Scientist or you're born Scientologist or you're born Amish. That's not how it is.
No.
Like if a normal person had an Amish child, that would just be ridiculous. Like he was like, the kid would say, Daddy, how come you get to have the lights on and you get to have television and video games and I don't? And he said,
You're
oh,
Amish.
sweetie, that's because you're Amish.
Yeah.
Now go to bed
Yeah.
because you got to wake up early and harvest Daddy's food.
Yep, and put on those clothes that they wear and
Yeah.
the crazy stuff.
But that's absurd.
Yeah.
We all recognize that immediately as ridiculous.
Yeah, you're right. Children, when you're born, I've heard people say they were Christian when you're born Christian. No, you're not. You're not born anything. You're not born an atheist. You're just born. You're just
Yeah.
there. You're a baby. You don't know anything
Yeah.
until someone teaches you.
Had you been born 6,000 miles in any direction, or 1,000 years, 100 years, 30 years,
Yeah.
in a different time at the same spot, like you'd probably be a different religion.
Yeah.
That's something. That was one of the things I remember growing up. It was like, oh, so people in Egypt, they're not like that. Oh, okay. Well, that's a little weird.
Yeah.
Well, so what's going on here? Why is it like that?
And it's amazing that how many people are the same religion as their parents.
Yeah.
In other words, they just decided on their own.
Yeah.
They looked at and they just decided, I'll stick with this one.
Yeah.
Most, I
Exactly.
think,
There aren't any 7-year-old Amish kids growing up in a Baptist household.
No.
That's not happening.
Yeah,
It
no.
does not happen. You're not born that way.
Yeah.
You're just not. You have to be conditioned and trained and maybe brainwashed.
brainwashes. Yeah, that's funny because they use that about kids going to. I've heard that about kids going to school. They learn science. I think so. When even in the Dover trial, the intelligent design trial, one of the former students from Dover who was majoring in science, I believe, came back, and people said, "Oh, he was brainwashed by those educators." Well, teaching somebody science isn't brainwashing. That's giving them an education. But that's the way they look at it. If you vary at all from what they believe,
They're
Yeah.
rhetorical twisting the situation around.
yeah.
Because like they know what they're doing is brainwashing, so
Yeah.
they'll just accuse everybody else of doing that.
Try to
It's
deflect.
just being slick and
Yeah.
deflecting and all that.
Yeah.
But if you were going to brainwash someone, why would you brainwash them a method of thought that conveniently helps them get out of what you brainwash them into? Because if you brainwash someone to think critically,
Yeah.
you've basically handed them. It'd be like a kidnapper giving their hostage the keys to the cell that they're keeping.
Yeah.
Like, you wouldn't do that. That's
Yeah.
why. That's what's educating people in science and critical thought is teaching them how to
Yeah.
also deny
Question.
everything that they've been taught. You know.
Yeah, and some of them will. Sometimes that's why things change.
Yeah. So if that's what's going on, it's not really so much. That's you're hardly being kidnapped if the guy's saying, "Well, you can go anytime you want."
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of the way on the Andy Griffith show, the Otis
The
the
what?
Drunk. Andy Griffith show,
No,
Otis the Drunk. They gave him the key so he could get into the
Yeah.
yeah. But they don't do that in real life. I don't think that really
No.
happens. No. There aren't many Otis the Drunks out there.
No.
Yeah. Well, there are many drunks out there, but they're not given the key to the jail. Yeah. But we've had. Now I noticed today we had the preliminary hearing for Jerry Sandusky, and he waived his right. I'm no legal expert, so I'm probably botching this up, but he waived his case to trial. The hearing they were going to have today was to determine whether they could go forward, and they were going to have many of the victims testify, and he waited till the last minute to waive waive this here. And these kids now had to spend the night wondering, what's it going to be like up there because it's pretty rough getting up there on the stand. I don't know if you've ever done it, but to get up there, and especially in a situation like this, talk about what he did to them.
Yeah.
To make those kids go through that again, and now there's talk that maybe they're talking about a plea bargain with him. This is more and more despicable every time you hear about this, that he's making these kids go through this, and if he is going to plea bargain, well, if he does it before the trial, they won't have to testify. But if he's going to make these kids go through that, that's even more detestable. I don't know what's going on there, and we should all probably wait to make the final decision until this is all over, because there's so many contradictory things. At first we heard that Mike McQueary, who saw them in the shower, said he was having sex with them. Now he says he told other people he heard noises, so there's some dispute about what he said. It's just a mess. And this is going to take a long time to sort through the criminal trial and the civil trials that are to come up, and it's a mess. It certainly has tarnished a university that had a great reputation, especially the football program, that had a reputation for doing it right, and this has just tarnished that beyond belief. We'll see what happens now up there. It's a very sad situation. We also had someone who wanted to call in, I think, and talk about President Obama and his some of his healthcare law reforms and things that have happened. I wonder if she's going to call in. I think she should. I think there's a way to do it. I think I'm going to talk to her through the TV here, but she should find a way to call in. We'll wait for her call. I think she's going to call in.
Yeah.
Premonition. I'm just, some of us.
More about the war on Christmas.
The war, that war. The war's not going so well. I think they're winning because Christmas seems to be moving along.
Well, and if there is a war and if Christians are losing, atheists have had very little to do with that.
Yeah.
It's if society is just trending secular, that's how it is.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you. You lost.
Yeah.
But it not because of anybody else. It's not because of something anybody else did. It's not because you were being attacked. It's because maybe what you were selling just wasn't.
People weren't buying it.
Yeah, like that.
Yeah.
What else? I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
But
they have. That brings up a point about many atheist children are raised in homes where they get some religious training. They have actually. Yeah. Our daughter went to an Episcopal school, and she learned about religion, learned about that, and now she's an atheist, of course, because she thought through all that. But I don't hear of many Christian schools teaching kids what an atheist is, what atheism is all about. So I wonder, what are they worried about? Is your faith so weak that you think one person questioning that's gonna do it?
Yeah, that does. I think a lot of that persecution complex is really about an insecurity.
Yes.
And there was talk about this back when Glenn Beck was more of a thing to think about or to care about.
I think we have a call coming in. I think maybe she heard me. Yes, caller.
Hi there. I heard you talking to me through the phone.
Yes, I was I was mental telepathy going right through. I don't know. You probably weren't even watching TV, were you? You probably just.
Yes, that's right. I just heard your brain waves coming through the air.
I'm glad it's working now.
Well, actually, what I wanted to talk about was how frustrating it is that the Catholic Church is putting pressure on President Obama. Under the health care law, the new health care reform law, institutions are supposed to provide contraceptive care as part of their medical insurance plan. There was a narrow exception for religious organizations, but the Catholic Church runs universities, runs hospitals, and they are asking for a much broader exemption so that the employees of those hospitals and the employees of those universities and secondary schools who may or may not be Catholic don't have those rights. And I'd like to hear you all talk about that.
Good. Will you stay on the phone? You can fill us in when we make errors here.
Okay.
Obviously, he's kowtowing to the Catholic Church and the religious right. I think they're also involved. Mostly this is about abortion, isn't it?
Well, it's contraception, too. It's not just abortion. And it hasn't happened yet. There is just pressure on him to do this.
Yeah. And, I don't understand why he's kowtowing. He's done some other things that kind of given into the right wing, and they're not going to support him anyway. And they're going to try to thwart him at every turn. So I don't know why we don't just go ahead with these things, like on the health care law. to my mind, a single payer is the way to go. I mean, Medicare
Well,
for everyone.
And from a non-religious perspective, where does the right of a religious organization, where does that begin and where does that end? At what point is it unfair to force religious people to do something that they don't like? I mean, where do you draw that line? I'll talk about, for example, Muslim women who want to wear Muslim dress. There are places where that can be an issue situations, or the people at Catholic University, the Muslims at Catholic University who want a crucifix removed from the place where they pray. How do you balance that?
Yeah. Well, I think now that last one, the Catholic, I think that happened at Catholic University down in Washington.
Yes.
You know, Muslims go to school there. If you go into a Catholic university, I can understand why they have crucifixes, they have Catholic things around. I mean, maybe you should go to a Catholic university if you don't want Catholic stuff. You know, I kind of side with them on that. I mean, that if you're going there, that's what you're going to find. I mean, you know, so I don't know. They have much of an argument there.
I think
But-
they're. I mean, you're looking at it from a proprietary kind of point of view. You know, I think it would make the most sense to assume that the Catholic Church, whoever owns the property, they should be the ones to say, well, you know, this is how it is. You know, like
Yeah.
that'd be like if someone came in and said, I need you to change the carpet. No,
Yeah.
you know, they're not
Yeah.
under any obligation to accommodate that.
Yeah.
But then you get into, I mean, this is a religious organization, so they have certain ethical or moral things that, or even just image things that you need to consider. You know, it may be best to accommodate people when they ask for something like that.
Yeah, that's up to them. But you're right. They
Yeah.
shouldn't have to be able to demand it. I mean, they're.
Yeah.
You know, they came to a Catholic university. Like I said, what do you think you're going to find? You
Yeah.
know.
As long as rules are applied fairly,
Right.
you know, if you're going to say, you know, we're not going to remove that for you Muslims. Well, then if Hindus ask for the same thing, well then you shouldn't, you know. Well,
Yeah.
but for you we will. I mean, I guess they could.
Yeah.
I think they probably would be within their rights to be discriminating like that. But
Yeah.
it would look bad.
It would, yeah, it would be.
Be hypocritical.
They'd be going down a slippery slope if they didn't
Yeah.
accommodate every group.
And that would be more of an issue of conscience. You know, do you
Yeah.
want to be a hypocrite,
Yeah.
even if it's legal? You know, you can legally be a hypocrite, but
That's a good thing for many people.
yeah, yeah. But
would-
is that what would be
Yeah.
best to do here? You know,
Yeah.
and it might just be better to accommodate Muslims. It might be better to accommodate whoever. You know,
Yeah, I'm kind of curious as to why they go to a Catholic university anyway.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it had a better education than maybe they offered a better education.
A program they wanted, so I can't
Yeah.
imagine what programs that they would. Well, maybe there's a reason. Maybe I just don't know it.
Yeah.
But there were now, but you know, contraceptive is part of this caller, but also abortion. That's a big topic, of course, for the religious right. And we had a bill passed, I believe, the Senate in Pennsylvania.
Yes, that's right. Senate Bill 732 that would require abortion providers to have the same staffing and office requirements as an outpatient surgery center. For example, things like 8-foot wide hallways and elevators that are industrial size. Things that aren't going to do anything to protect women's health and safety. They're using the terrible stuff that happened in Philadelphia. The doctor in Philadelphia who ran a horrible place where women did die. Now, there are laws in the books that they could have used against that man, and they didn't. And now they're using that as an excuse to make it very hard for abortion providers to exist in Pennsylvania.
That's one of the things people do. They look for something like that to say, see, we got to have these laws. We got to stop these people. And mostly it's the anti-choice people who don't want any abortions, and they're going to try to make it impossible one way or the other. And I think there are many people, many Republicans, you know, are anti-choice. But I think the hierarchy of the Republican Party knows that if they overturn Roe versus Wade, they will have a mess on their hands. There will be a lot of people upset about that. So instead of overturning Roe versus Wade, they kind of chip away at the other things. You make it impossible for people to get abortions, and you don't have to then change the law.
Well, and the thing about the provision that the Catholic Church is trying to force Obama to change, what they're talking about there is contraception. birth
Right.
control pills.
Right.
Most people most Catholics are in favor of birth control pills. So I think it's interesting that there hasn't been more press about that and more concern when you consider the number of Catholic hospitals, the number of Catholic universities there are. That's a lot of people who will be affected.
Yeah. Well, the Catholic families, if you look at, Caller, when you grew up, which I think you're about the same age I am, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, I think so. You had Catholic families, 10, 12 kids. They're not unusual. Now you don't see that anymore.
No, you don't.
Yeah. So somebody is using those contraceptives, or that are getting very lucky, I guess.
Or maybe they're just abstinent.
Yeah.
I doubt it.
I kind of doubt that. I think the birth control is being used. Let's face it. That's a battle I think the Catholic Church has probably lost.
Why would they continue to fight that? Why would they? I don't see why they would. It's 2011. Where do they think they're going to get with that? They really think they're going to convince people to stop taking birth control?
I hope.
Are they out of their minds?
Yeah, they might be. Well, for instance, for instance, if you get married
this
in a Catholic
This is too much. That's too much. This is. How could they honestly expect to get? Where do they think they're going to go with that? They think people are really going to do that.
Yeah. Well, I think they know better, but they got to stick to their guns.
That's ridiculous. That is completely ridiculous.
Well,
anybody giving the Catholic Church money, this is what that. Why would you do something? They're clearly, they have no idea what they're doing or what time period they live in.
No.
Like, why would you support something
that
is going to do things like that?
They would love to go back to the age when the priests were the only educated people in town, and they, the Dark Ages, when they ran everything because they were the only ones who had any education and could read anything.
But it is impossible. It is impossible to go back. You can't, what they want, the closest thing today that exists, that is what would be kind of like the logical extension of what something like that would be, is like Iran trying to lock down the internet during a rebellion. Like, people naturally want to have sex, and they're naturally going to. There's a demand right there for birth control. There's that, which is the free market. So conservatives, there you go. If you're a conservative Catholic, pick one. Free market, which has a demand and a supply for contraceptives. So either hold on to your free market principles, or this irrational crap about no one should have contraceptions because you should only have sex if you intend to have children every single time you have sex. Pick one. You have to pick one because one of them's crazy. One of them's completely unattainable. There's no way. It's just like trying to lock the internet down in Iran. You're not going to do it. Guess what? People are going to get out. They're going to find contraceptives some other way. Right. That's how it is. They'll just go around it. This is why we have to have abortion clinics before Roe versus Wade. Like, there's a demand. If we don't take care of it, it's going to be black market.
Yes.
If in every situation where we have that is because the legal markets aren't accommodating the way people actually consume these products.
Yeah. Prohibition, good example.
Yeah. Every time there's a black market, it's because of that. If it were movies or music, whatever it would be, it's because those markets aren't being presented in such a way that the people, the consumers, can work with it. Yeah. Consumers want birth control. If you think oh man, this is just ridiculous. Yeah, it is. This drives me crazy. This is why most people just don't pay attention to this stuff.
Oh, no,
because it's just completely ludicrous.
Yeah. Well, like we said, the Catholics they've given up pretty much on the birth control. Another thing,
because they have to. It's beating their head against the wall. Yeah. Why would you do something so stupid? Why would you have an idea that is that ridiculous and unmapped to reality? Like, why give up? There's no point. You're not going to get anywhere with that.
But they hang in there. Well, as has been pointed out to me, the Catholic Church is not a democracy. I mean, it's ruled from the top, and they don't care what you think, and they don't probably don't care that people are not. Well, the same thing. Look at the death penalty. The Catholic Church is against the death penalty, but you don't hear them making a big deal about it, do you? Because most Catholics, or many Catholics, are very right wing, and they're in favor of the death penalty. You heard, I don't know if you heard them cheering at the one Republican debate when they talked about Rick Perry killing people. They were cheering this, and yet they're pro-life. And they love their life, But that's another topic.
Yeah.
But let's get back
Well,
to
then I really enjoyed the show, and I'm going to hang up now. Have a nice evening.
Oh, we'll try to. Thank you. Thank you for calling.
Thank you.
We'll see if anyone else wants to weigh in on that subject. Well, abortion is not a church-state separation issue. It's not a Christian atheist issue, because there are many atheists who are anti-choice. I think more are pro-choice, but it's an issue it strikes. What upsets, I think, most atheists is the fact that this is almost religiously driven. The
Yeah.
church trying to tell us that we should ban abortion. Yeah. No, we don't want the church running our civil laws.
I think mostly there's the idea amongst non-believers is if we're going to have these rules, they should come about through reason or
Yes.
through democracy or something. They should come about through some form, that isn't just faith or doctrine or dogma or decree. Like it shouldn't be that. Like if you're going to say don't murder, tell me why. Why? I just want a reason. That's all. If we're going to say no abortion, if somebody comes up with a great reasoned argument for it, then there we go. That's it. That's fine. That's good enough for me. As long as there's good reason behind it. But for people, that is the problem. The problem with it is it's all religiously motivated.
Yeah.
All of the war there in that whole deal is just religious stuff.
Yeah.
If we're going to have that be outlawed, that's one thing. If it's going to be outlawed because somebody, looked in a hat at some magic stones and it said don't have abortions, I'm not going to quit smoking because somebody said that, because of some magic stones. I'm not going to not drive until I'm 16 because of some magic stones. It's got to be reason and critical thought and something based on reality.
Well, a lot of people don't seem to want to accept that we live in a secular society. We're not a theocracy. They don't get to write the rules. They can write the rules for their church, but as we see, many people don't believe them. As a matter of fact, getting on the subject of abortion, I knew someone who worked at a Catholic hospital who said, well, they call them D&Cs there. They don't call them abortions.
Oh.
Women go in and they call it a D&C, but they get an abortion. And even before abortion was legal, women were getting abortions. Now, rich women had doctors who they could pay and get a safe surgical abortion, whereas poor women, many of them had to resort to back alley practitioners who, many of them died, from these people who didn't know what they were doing. And that's the kind of thing, if we eliminated Roe versus Wade, we'd go back to that.
Yeah, we'll go to that with that. We'll go to that with contraception. Well, I just saw on the news these anti-vaccine people, these other nutcases, who believe that vaccines will make you autistic or mentally retarded, or whatever, because of one article in a health journal, 10 years ago, which ironically, normally, these are the conspiracy theorists would normally say, well, you can't trust the science journals, you can't trust the health journals, because they're the ones covering everything up.
That's right.
Except when what's published is in favor. Right, okay. Because that's how smart they are. That's how critical think. That's how well glued their head is onto their shoulders. But, so this one thing, which turned out to be completely falsified anyway, this one article said that there was a link between vaccines and autism. Because of that, these people are against having vaccines.
Right.
But they understand the principle behind vaccines, and that is you introduce a weakened or dead form of a virus to the body, and a healthy immune system will sort of learn the virus, and that's how your immune system then will know how to attack it. You'll be immune to it, basically. Now, the problem with the vaccines is the thing that was supposedly causing issues in that one study that turned out to be completely wrong anyway, was the sort of mercury that was in vaccines. Now, this mercury is in the vaccines to extend the shelf life, because the stuff, it's biological. It won't last. It'll go bad, and after a certain amount of time, the vaccine will be no good. So they need to put something preservatives. This mercury is in there as a preservative. So I guess in the last few months, anti-vaccine people have been taking a kid with chicken pox, having them lick a lollipop, and then mailing these lollipops to their friends in the mail with basically infected with chicken pox. And then they would, their friend would get it out and give it to their kid to vaccinate them from chicken pox, which, probably isn't going to work, for one.
I would guess not.
For two, is illegal. Like, you can't mail contagious viruses to people in the U.S. postal system. That's anthrax. That's terrorism, basically.
Yeah.
Like, you cannot do that. That's horrible. But that, how I'm trying to link that to what we were discussing here, with if you take certain things off the table, if you take certain things off of, what do you call it? I guess white market? I don't know. If you make certain things black market,
Yeah.
you make them much more riskier and more dangerous.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
if healthcare isn't available, you think people are just going to not get their broken legs healed? Like, what's going to end up happening? It's just like with the Catholic Church with this contraceptive thing. You think people aren't going to stop taking contraceptives. That's not going to happen. They're either going to go get back alley abortions.
Yeah.
If abortions weren't available, they're still going to get them,
Yep.
but they'll be much more dangerous.
Yeah.
They're still going to get contraceptives, but it'll be much more dangerous.
Yeah.
People are still going to go, if they can't have health care, this whole thing with the presidential race and Obamacare and Romney care,
Yeah.
whichever one you want to call it,
Yeah.
and denying people health care. Now, health care is ridiculously expensive. I understand that is a problem we need to figure out, and that's not going to be easy.
No.
But if you don't give people health care, they're not just going to roll over and die and say, oh, okay, Congress doesn't want to, okay, never mind. That's not going to happen. They're going to go and get risky operations. They're going to go, like people flying to Mexico or going to Canada. Like, that's what's going to happen. You get cancer and you can't afford it, you're going to do something. You're going to start trying these magic beads. You're going to, whatever.
But the black market, speaking of that, when I worked at a hospital, we had a lot of overdoses, drug overdoses come in. And I was talking to one of the counselors once, this was a guy in his 40s, and I said, gee, you think a guy in his 40s would know how to take drugs so he wouldn't OD? And she said, well, they're buying drugs on the street. They don't know what they're buying.
Yeah.
I mean, they
Was
think...
this in Baltimore?
Yeah.
So it was probably heroin? Was probably a lot of the...
Yeah, a lot of heroin.
They had a bad,
yeah. And she said, they don't know what they're buying, or cocaine, and even that, you don't know what strength you're getting, what level. Once again, not regular. That's the black market. You take your chances. You don't know what you're getting.
You wouldn't even know if it's at all what you thought it was.
Oh, yeah,
You would have no idea. It's
Yeah.
completely unregulated. Which is another argument for involved in the war on drugs, is people would say legalize it so that it can be safe.
I think we've lost that war.
That was-
People complain about people coming in from Mexico with all these drugs. Well, it never occurred to us that they wouldn't bring the drugs in if we didn't buy them.
Yeah.
They'd stop bringing them.
Well, that was, yeah. We could talk about that. I don't know. But yeah, there was the supply side sort of idea. Did you ever watch The Wire? It's set in Baltimore. You would love it.
Yeah, we never got a chance to see that much because then it was on Funny Time. Not when we were.
Well, and it was HBO. I think,
yeah.
So if you didn't have that.
Well, we do have HBO now.
Oh man, you would love it. You would really like it because it's
Yeah.
set in Baltimore.
Yeah, we knew a lot of the places where they shot that thing. Yeah.
But they had a guest on for a few episodes, and this guy, I can't remember his name, but he's big on the war on drugs. But his thing was, and there's been other movies and many books and stuff written about this, but it's exactly what you said. Until you stop people wanting to buy it, you're never gonna stop people selling it. It's same thing with the abortions, or contraceptives or anything else. Anything people want, someone's gonna sell.
Yeah. Well, once again, Prohibition, good example, isn't it?
Yeah.
Of course, if you watch HBO, you can watch Boardwalk Empire.
I haven't seen any of that.
That's a good show. Yeah, that's but and people, if I understand, since man can remember, we've always had some kind of hallucinogenic things that things we did, drinking or drugs or whatever. It's just apparently a human need, and to try to deny it. I mean, most of us think there's some things should be controlled, but people want these things, and they're going to get them. They're going,
I think
one way or the other, they're going to get it.
My personal thing with the war on drugs and all that is, if we had better drug education that was honest and told you the truth, I think there would be less people. People would understand. They would have reasons through better education. You would end up being given reasons not to experiment with certain drugs. You know, like they would know. If you want to wind up a junkie, go right ahead. But that's what's going to happen. You know, if we had better education instead of kind of the more fear-based kind of stuff, I think we might be able to do better.
Well, if I remember as a kid, a young person, a young teen, there were a lot of people that marijuana, if you try marijuana, it's a gateway drug, you're gone. And I thought that a lot of people they smoked pot, and they said, well, that's not that bad. So they're probably lying about these other drugs, too, and got on to harder stuff.
Yeah, so
and,
it was a self-fulfilling threat, basically. To say it was a gateway drug, well, you made it a gateway drug by planting that seed in their heads. Yeah.
That this is terrible, and then they smoke it, and they say, well, nothing, nothing tremendously bad happened. And now that's funny, because my parents always told me, heroin, don't ever do heroin. That's that's the worst. Well, so that was kind of ingrained in me early. Don't ever do heroin. So, and I never did. So. Yeah.
But even there, like if I was just told that by adults when I was a kid, I wouldn't know whether to trust them or not because of these other things. You know, like clearly, they're selling alcohol, and even the classes that you just put me in explain that alcohol is worse than marijuana. So. I mean, this ain't adding up, you know. So what else? You know, I wouldn't necessarily trust that. But I had to be taught from other people. You know, luckily I never did heroin, but I was told enough and read enough, you know, too, that like basically, you know, like the fourth time you do heroin, that's
it. Yeah.
You're going to be doing heroin every day for the rest of your life until you die in a couple of years. Like that was pretty much what I learned. That's one of the bad ones, And so the other ones are this PCP. I don't hear a lot about that anymore. I could tell you stories at the hospital of people that had on PCP. The stuff they did was just incredible. Yeah.
I mean, you know.
Well, then
tried to gouge their eye. One guy gouged his eyes out.
And then there's new drugs every few years. Like, I mean, meth ain't so new anymore. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah.
People are doing crazy things with their lives because of that.
And if we legalize some of this stuff, maybe people would. Well, first of all, marijuana, which I don't smoke at all, so I'm not big on marijuana. But I don't think it's much more dangerous, is it, than alcohol?
Less.
It's
and
by the government's own
less.
standards. By their own standards, in every metric they have about how you would determine how dangerous a drug is, marijuana is not dangerous. It should be legal by their own standards.
You know who we should have call in here is Dr. Drew, or somebody who really knows Dr. Drew and knows him intimately, who knows what he's talking about. I think that person should pipe up and tell us about that. But if we could get him to call in, that would be something.
But I don't know about legalizing much. I don't know. I just feel like if people understood more, if we had better education, that would probably solve a lot of it. I don't know. That's my thing.
Well, better education, I think if we had better education generally, would have solved the housing crisis.
It would solve a lot of stuff.
Yeah, there were a lot of people who end up buying houses that you said, if you had any education, you wouldn't have bought that house. Why would you pay for?
They don't want you to understand. The banks don't want you to understand how that stuff works.
Well, some people didn't. The people who made the money off it was people that were, I'll be gone, you'll be gone. That's what happened. They dumped this stuff off on unsuspecting investors. That's the one I understand. And once again, I'm no economist or expert on this area, but it sure seems like we got stuck holding the bag here for these banks that made these terrible loans. I know in Baltimore.
But even when you try to, I mean, no matter, and this is what's so crazy with the controversy as big as the housing crisis was, you'd think everybody would kind of know, like everybody knows what happened in the OJ trial, like or what actually happened. Everybody knows, at least people who were alive then, know basically play by play what happened that night. With 9/11, everybody knows what happened with that. But you try and explain what happened with the housing crisis, it's too complicated. It's purposely complicated and convoluted and too difficult to follow unless you're initiated, unless you are an accountant, unless you are someone who works in finances and things like that. And even then it's still challenging.
Some of them didn't understand. I understand these default swaps and things. They didn't even understand what that was. They were basically betting on things that go down and taking bets and crazy. You know, I go to the
And I just
racetrack.
don't
I'll
understand.
take that bet. And then I know the horse is running. I know if he
Yeah.
comes in first, I win.
And I don't like
You know.
gambling at all. I think the
Yeah.
lottery, you shouldn't even be able to buy lottery tickets at the convenience. There should be a separate store, so I don't have to stand behind them when all I want is a soda, and I gotta wait 5 minutes for them to pick their cards. And
Yeah.
you know,
one
I
thing.
apologize to any lottery players in the audience, but that drives me nuts. I can't.
And it seems like the poorer the neighborhood, the longer the lottery line.
Yeah.
it's you know,
That could be.
people who shouldn't be spending
got no
money on
hope.
that. Yeah, well, for a lot of people, that's their hope that they're going to hit the lottery, and geez, it's you know, and
like religion, huh?
yeah, kind of like religion. One of our producers
It's a
said.
long bet.
Yeah, they're kind of hoping against hope that this is going to be it. I'm going to hit the big one, you
Yeah.
know. And they see these people on TV, and of course, the ironic thing now is one of the last winners of the big one were these three money managers up in Connecticut who are wealthy
Yeah.
people anyway, and what do they need the money for? But
Yeah.
they always want more, don't they? Yeah. Well, we started off with the war on Christmas, and we moved on to some other topics. Hope people enjoyed watching it. We've only got a few minutes left. But as far as the war on Christmas, well, I think we've lost that war, because I think Christmas is, if we're the ones starting the war on Christmas,
No, I
we've
think
been defeated. you
Christmas
know.
is the same as marriage. It's going to be whatever the people make it. You know, it's like there's complaints. I don't know how many, you might not get this, but like in hip hop.
No, I wouldn't get that.
Well, this one rapper, Mos Def, you might have seen. He's an actor too. But he had this one album, and he said where people were saying, asking him, when will hip hop get better, and what's wrong with hip hop or whatever. And he said that hip hop is going to be whatever the people are, and that's how marriage is going to be. That's how society is going to be. If we don't look at marriage anymore as dowries and transfers of land and consolidating power, and if we decide to look at it as a union of love between two people, then that's what we're going to see it as. You can't force it. It's going to be whatever people make it, and same thing with Christmas. If people aren't interested in all of the religious, guilt and fear and whatever, if it ends up being just about being with your family and having a little celebration in the middle of winter when it's freezing, and buying stuff for people and being friendly out in public, then that's all it's going to be. It doesn't need to have. You can't force it to also be about. Oh, make sure you mention Jesus today. People aren't probably going to do that. Whatever is going to come natural is what it's going to be, and that's how the war on Christmas will end.
Yeah.
It won't be. It'll be called Christmas, and no one will remember why it's called Christmas. Just like nobody remembers why we have boughs of holly. Nobody remembers why we have a feast at all. Nobody remembers why it's on that date. Nobody remembers any of those things because it didn't matter. None of that mattered. And it's not ever going to matter. Why do we hang stockings? Why do we have a Christmas tree inside? Nobody remembers how any of those things came
They don't
about,
care.
or that they actually have nothing to do with Jesus in the first place. But we're associating with it now for no good reason. It's
Yeah,
not
for
gonna
most
matter.
people, let's get gifts, especially kids. We're going to get gifts. Oh boy,
Yeah.
that's all they care about. They don't care about this other stuff.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, then you can blame the loss on the war of Christmas on Macy's and Kmart. That's not secular.
Well, not Macy's. They gave us that great parade.
Yeah.
We like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't Occupy Wall Street. That was Macy's.
No, that was, yeah. Well, we're down to the last half minute here. Hope you all enjoyed watching us, and hope we brightened up your day a little bit. And if you're a Christian, you love Christmas. I hope we didn't depress you too much.
No.
But we'll be back on the air in 2 weeks.
And
Free Thought
probably
Forum.
more Christmas talk.
Well,
then.
yeah, well, that'll be right after Christmas. We're about to go sign off, so hope you all have a good night, and look for us here again in 2 weeks. We'll have
Ho, ho,
another
ho.
exciting show. 12 o'clock on the wall says we should be signing off, but I'm sure we
Maybe
will
not.
any second now.
The war on Christmas never ends.